pressure. Anxiety is actually a feeling of being overwhelmed, a feeling of worrying and unease. Okay, anxiety can be normal and stress can be normal. So we also get stress, good stress, because good stress actually helps us to move forward, to actually get things done. But anxiety can also be good because it can also help us to recognize what's going wrong in our lives. But both can lead to dysfunction when it affects our behavior, our functioning. So anxiety is actually the behavior of stress. It is a feeling of fear and worry or nervousness, um, and stressful events or experiences can trigger feelings of anxiety. Okay, so anxiety becomes problematic when it becomes out of control. So, what are the signs and symptoms of anxiety? Anxiety can present itself in many ways. It can lead to us feeling overwhelmed, feeling like we can't cope, unable to focus, unable to function in our day to day activities. We become agitated, restless, irritable. Sometimes we could avoid activities and become withdrawn, but we can also present with physical symptoms. Okay, so physical symptoms can include stomach cramps, unable to eat or eating too much, um, not able to sleep or sleeping too much. Okay, emotionally, it can come out as being able to, we wanting to cry all the time. But then we can also have the flip side of that, where we become more aggressive, we can become controlling. So anxiety is fear, and fear leads to controlling behavior, controlling actions, and that can lead to us being perfectionists. And when we don't have that structure, we don't know how to deal with it. Okay. Um, so we're going to look at ants. Ants are automatic negative thoughts. Okay. Automatic negative thoughts. Anxiety and stress starts off in our thoughts. It's the way what we think about an event or what we think of um, a stress, so-called stressor, contributes to our actions. So generally, we have automatic negative thoughts, okay, that can lead to us behaving badly or behaving in an anxious way. So these are examples of automatic negative thoughts. For example, he's always putting me down. I feel like staying in bed. I can't do this. I can't write this exam. Nobody ever listens to me. Nobody understands me. I'm a failure, etc. So, as we're going through this webinar, I would like all of the children and parents and educators to think about your own ants, that is, your own automatic negative thoughts that come up daily. So, this is just a representation of what I was saying. So, we have the event, or we have an experience, and then we have our anxious thought or a thought about that particular stressor or trigger. Okay, then that would lead to feelings. So the thought leads to feelings, feelings then lead to action and behavior. And what we see as adults is the action. We see the behavior. We don't actually know what's going on in the heads or the thoughts, the thought processes. So before it comes to anxious actions, there are thought processes and feelings that come up. Okay, we're going to actually now just play a short video which is going to just summarize everything we talked about. So Sadhna, can we please play the video?
You know that scared or nervous feeling you get when you have to do something you're not sure you can do? Or go somewhere you've never been before? That feeling is called anxiety. And it can feel a bit different for each person, but it usually doesn't feel very nice. Maybe your palms get sweaty, or your body tenses up, or maybe you get a tummy ache. Maybe you've heard of anxiety, or maybe you haven't, but you've definitely felt it before. Because everyone feels it sometimes. It's normal. You want to know something really weird about anxiety? It's actually trying to help you. It's true. All those uncomfortable feelings, those happen because your brain thinks you're in danger, and it wants to protect you. When our muscles tense up and we sweat, it gets us ready to do a lot of exercise, which is helpful if you need to jump out of the way of a runaway train or wrestle a wolverine. Sometimes our minds go blank and we feel like we can't move or talk. That would be great if we needed to hide. Instead, we just feel stuck. When your brain does this, it's called fight, flight, or freeze. The problem is, sometimes your brain gets confused and it can't tell the difference between a charging moose and, say, going to a new school. Both things can be scary and cause anxiety. But there aren't any dangerous wild animals at a new school. Hopefully. Understanding where anxiety comes from is the first step in learning to deal with it. So the next time you're in one of those tough situations and you start to feel those feelings, like butterflies in your stomach, or sweaty palms, or it gets hard to talk or move, remember, there's nothing wrong with your body. You're just having normal feelings of anxiety, and they're actually trying to help, even if they're not very good at it sometimes.
Okay, Jay, we're done with the video. Would you like for us to take the poll? Jay, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Where would you like for us to go? Would you like for us to take the poll?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, Sadhna, will you launch the poll, please? Can you just tell the audience what the poll's about, please, Jay?
Okay, so we have a few questions which we'd like you to answer. It's just for us to get, for all of us, to get a better understanding of anxiety, your understanding of where you are, the behavior patterns of anxiety, etc. So we can just, these can be discussion points in our groups as well. So it's a quick poll for 1 minute. You have 1 minute to complete, and then I will go through the responses. Okay, so Sadhna, can we initiate the poll, please?
Sorry, I'm just trying to fix the issue.
Okay.
All right. All right, so at this point, while we're just waiting for the poll, if you have any questions from the audience, you're welcome to raise your hand, or you can just type your queries in the chat box. If you're welcome to do that now. If you have any comments on Jay's presentation, for instance, you'd like to have some clarity on some of the points she's mentioned, you're welcome to type a question in the chat box, or you're welcome to raise your hand. Okay. All right. So Jay, do you want to just elaborate a little bit on the ants slide, perhaps?
Yes. I'm going to go back to the ants.
Okay.
Okay.
It's fine if you. Oh.
Okay. So, our thoughts are the basis of everything that we do. Everything that we do starts in our head. So we need to start actually being conscious and aware of what we're thinking, because what we're thinking actually reflects on how we behave, and it also reflects on what we're attracting in our lives. So we may not say things outwardly, but if we're thinking it, it's what we're telling our mind and our body, which is how we're going to um, present. Okay. So we need to be conscious and aware of our thoughts. And the same with children or young people. They have a lot of thoughts going in their head. And we don't actually know, or we need to create a platform where they can share what they're thinking. Because sometimes children are afraid of the thoughts. Sometimes children are afraid of saying what they're thinking because of our own stereotypes, because of how they're afraid of how we're going to respond. And as adults, we respond according to what we know best, or how we were taught to respond. Um, so perhaps we need to start engaging in discussion, having a family meeting, family time, where we can start discussing, how was your day, what's been going on, but also generally with school children, we get a day was fine or nothing happened at school. They had 8 hours of school and nothing happened. So it's actually like, okay, so who did you spend your break time with? Or what's your view of this, or what's your view of that? And then we get an idea of what we're thinking. Then we need to find a way of changing those negative thoughts into something positive. So if it's negative, we need to recognize those negative thoughts. And then we need to tell ourselves, is this realistic? Is this something that is definitely going to happen? And very often we find these thoughts are about the future that did not happen yet, or the past, which has already happened and we can't change that. So um, we need to look at our thought. Is it something within our control? Is that event or the thing we're thinking about within our control? What can we control about this? And then there's things that are out of our control. What can we not control about this? So if there's things that we can't control, we need to find a way of saying, I'm going to let go of this. Take those 2 steps back, take the 2 steps back and say that I'm going to let go of this. I have this in my control, and it can create less stress. So thank you, Sadhna, for the poll. Can we all please take a few moments just to answer these questions, please? And then I'll review the answers. Thank you.
Jay, I think people are done with the poll now.
Okay. I
Sana, can
can't
you
see.
release? Yeah, Sana, can you release the results, please?
Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go through the responses for the poll. The first one is, how do you know you're anxious? Majority of the people responded by saying that they feel worried, and they have changes in concentration and sleep. These are the common responses. Okay, so unable to focus is a big thing. What triggers your anxiety? Poor school performance, family conflict, and pandemic. So over the past 2 years, or just a little less than 2 years, the pandemic has actually taken over our lives, and it's changed families, it's changed the way we work, the way we go to school. It changes our school performance as well. Um, so I see these are the three top responses in terms of triggers. So family conflict, school performance, and pandemic. When am I anxious? Okay, so when I'm anxious, most of you answered I withdraw and isolate, or I show no emotion. So, this affects the frontal lobe of your brain. Anxiety and stress affects the frontal lobe of your brain. And that is the center of the brain that controls emotions. So emotions can go way up and down. So you get from anger to rage, from sadness to depression, but also you become unable to show your emotions. Also, it could it could be resulting of fear. Who would you trust to share your troubles with? Um, so majority of the people said a family member or a friend. Okay, so um, we need to learn to develop trusting relationships. And I find that this is lacking. People actually don't know how to develop trusting or how to develop intimate trusting relationships with each other. So it's interesting to note that there's a small percentage of people that said that they would go to the teacher um, uh, for support. Okay. And a fair number said that they cannot trust anyone. Okay. So that's the results of our poll, which is evident that it affects our emotions, our concentration, ability to focus, and most importantly, is finding those trusting relationships. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Jay. All right, so we'll stop the poll. Thank you very much, participants, for responding to those questions. I think they say quite a lot about our response to anxiety. And so now we're going to discuss these issues a little bit deeper, right? And to do that, we're going into two breakout rooms, one for parents and scholars and the other with teachers. So Jay Sheila will facilitate the parent and scholar group, and Desiree will facilitate the group of teachers. So in a moment, you will see a notification on your screen requesting you to join a breakout room. Click on join to go into that group. And then let's quickly go through a few points on a webinar etiquette. So as the facilitators begin the discussion, you may participate by clicking on the raise your hand icon if you'd like to speak, or you can write your questions or queries in the chat box. Please keep your microphone on mute when you're not speaking. And after 30 minutes, we will come together to summarize the group discussions and listen to the strategies that can be used to manage anxiety. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly ask the scribes to be on alert now. So Varsha Bogle and Sunitha Basant and Mikara, Miraj, and Kareen Dhani will assist in with the chat box in the breakaway rooms. Sadhna, please take us to the breakout rooms. Thank you.
identify 5 things in your life that you may be worried about or that may be your stressors. What can you control about the stressor? What aspects are out of your control? Identify your ants in relation to the stressor and discuss the behavior patterns. So if I would like to hear from the children as well, what are your top stressors? If you're shy to talk, perhaps just put it on the chat. And if you have a specific question, please, you can type it on the chat, but raise your hand so we can have a discussion. Yes, Yash, your hand is up.
Okay, so most of my stressors would be bullying and also low performance at school. So yeah, and also the COVID-19 pandemic a little bit.
Okay. So Yash, you said the poor performance at school. What are the things that you can control about this?
Well, I can study more and I can work harder by doing more work towards it.
Okay, and what are things you cannot control about it?
I cannot control the difficulty of the different tests. I cannot control the questions, the type of questions that may come out.
Okay, and then do you think what are some of your ants related to this? The automatic thoughts, what are your negative thoughts related, or what do you think about?
Well, some few times I think that I cannot answer this question.
Okay.
That's about it.
Okay. So then we need to change that to see that, you know what, you tried, you studied, as you said, that's one of the things that's in your control, and how you're going to change that. You can't change the outcome, but you can just try your best.
Yes.
I see there's some other concerns related to pandemic. So the pandemic, what are some of the concerns regarding the pandemic?
Well, most of the concerns are actually getting sick with it, or family getting sick with it because of quarantining and all of that. And you can't get together as well.
Yeah. Okay. So the pandemic has changed everyone's life, and we need to and yes, when people are sick, we need to, before that point, we need to take our precautions, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, and we need to be maintain social distance, and be conscious of our actions, and also remember to eat healthy, to take our vitamins, and to do all the home remedies or whatever remedies you need to take. Thank you,
All right,
Yash.
so Jay,
No
sorry.
problem.
Thanks, Yash. Yeah, so Jay, I see Rashila has responded to all of these.
Okay.
The pandemic and school performance, and I think she's what can she control is about the safety, being safety conscious, and what aspects are out of control are other people's behaviors.
Correct.
So I don't know if you want to just probably ask Rashila to elaborate on those for us. Maybe that'll help the other participants in the group, and probably talk about the ends.
Yes, Rashila. So Rashila, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Namaste.
Namaste.
One of the critical areas that I've found the children really struggled with is how other students were behaving in relation to COVID compliance, because COVID safety can be managed within the home and when we're going out, and the children can be really self-conscious about themselves, but they get really freaked out at school, for example, if other children are not using their masks and shields, or they're not sanitizing appropriately. And they also harbor those extreme fears as well about bringing COVID home. That was a huge stress factor for the kids. at some point as well when they were going to school regularly. So, the only way that we could really allay it is by just training them to be COVID compliant at all times, and to take care of themselves first,
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
can tell you that the pandemic really made a huge dent on the psyche and confidence of the kids in terms of attendance at school and, their fears as well, because they were exposed to lots of other kids who also, had family members suffering from COVID and who were critical, some who passed on. So it's just a really, really difficult time for the children right now.
Absolutely. Because it is a whole lifestyle change as well. And they're not able to interact with their friends. They're not able to go, and the learning has changed in itself. So you're right. We cannot change other people's actions. We can only focus on what we're doing. But it's also, as parents, I think we also need to be aware of how we respond and what we saying and doing at home. I think that also children also feed off our own stressors as well. That plays a big role. I see there's another comment. I have a nephew who recently told me that his friends tell him to take out his mask because it's not cool. This is peer pressure. Concerns with us at home so that we can then assist them to taking these matters further, and we can assist them with appropriate responses. So they need to be able to build their self-esteem and say, whether they accept that or not. But it's not easy for children. But we need to be able to say if we can report it to a parent, a teacher, or the principal. Um, yeah, and take it there. There's a question to the parents. What do you think makes your kids anxious? Any parents on the group would like to answer that?
Okay, so Jay, maybe we can ask Kiara. I think she's a scholar, right?
Yes.
Maybe Kiara, would you like to probably just respond to those questions that Mikara posted? 5 things in your life, well, maybe not even 5,
maybe just 1 or 2.
Yeah, that you would like that create concern, and how can you control these really? Kiara, would you like to unmute? No, Kiara is not unmuting. Anyone else?
I think I'm randomly gonna pick names now.
Yeah.
Okay, Nika, Naika. Remember, I'm not gonna know if you're a parent or a child or a scholar.
You're welcome to type in the chat box if you don't want to unmute. Shadabin, how about you? What have you noticed amongst your children that stresses, that probably create some stress in their lives?
Okay, namaste, greetings to all. Yeah, I think it's pressure from family members as well that don't understand anxiety and this kind of behavior or this type of feelings that we go through. So I think that also puts them under immense pressure. Pressure from family, I'm saying, right? I know that's what comes to mind immediately.
Okay, so family pressure, again, it stems from our responses as families that contributes to the anxiety.
Okay, so yeah, there's Anastasia has indicated that as a parent, I'm finding that my son does not understand how the isolation has impacted his usual activities. I'm not sure, Anastasia, did you want to complete that? He thinks. And then Nika says, when I have a project due very soon and not enough time to do it. Oh yeah, even me, Nika. I'm also stressed out by that.
So can we
And
ask you, Sarala, how do you deal with that deadlines and meeting project deadlines and the stress related to that?
yeah, so for me, I work with the to-do list. I'm very big on a to-do list, and I create a to-do list for each week. And I allocate specific amounts of time to specific projects, and I ensure that it's that I set up the goals for that particular project. So, for instance, if there are people I need to contact, if there's I know that I need to do it within a particular time frame, and so for me, a to-do list is very important because there is such a it's almost a triumph when I can put a tick against those activities that are that I've completed. So I feel very, very excited that I've accomplished that. And just to reduce my stress, I have to tell you that I engage in a lot of exercise. So exercise is very big for me, and yoga. So exercise and yoga, I just helps me maintain my balance in terms of the stressors that that we have around us all the time. But the other point that I'd like to share is that when I have an activity or task that needs to be completed, I make sure that I'm very focused. I'm very focused on it. I take time aside. I enter a quiet space. So those are my coping strategies with stress. But I see that other people have also indicated. So maybe Anastasia, do you want to come on and speak about these things? That would be nice. Yeah, no? Okay. Then Mohammed has also.
Hello.
Yes, there you
Yes,
are. Hello.
Oh,
Anastasia.
there. Sorry, I was just trying to fiddle with the buttons on my phone.
Oh,
So
we're
I
happy
was
to
saying,
see you.
yeah, as a parent, I'm finding that the kids don't really know how to interpret the fact that they are isolated at home. I'm a counselor as well, and I've just recently spoken to a young man who felt that he suffered from some kind of depressive, he had a name for it. He'd actually gone onto Google and found a name for what he thought he had. But after we'd spoken about it, he actually, we realized that he was just not doing what he used to do. He didn't hang out with his buddies as he usually did. So, they kind of misinterpret or rather are not understanding how the pandemic and the isolation is actually impacting them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in the school setting, that's something that we need to cover. Perhaps that's something we need to look at. We need to explore a little bit more about how teachers themselves are afraid, and teachers themselves, don't know how to explain and express this. And you're right, there's a lot of misinterpretation around this. But I think, again, we need to start conversations with these children. We need to start conversations with each other, so that we can then break down the stigma, and we can then move forward in terms of explaining that, yes, life has changed, our activities and behaviors have changed. And again, we're not talking to children enough. I think sometimes parents also have their own issues because of the pandemic. But we need to start that open communication. Nothing's going to beat that family time and that communication with each other. And Dr. Google is not always correct. So, unfortunately, we're looking at these kind of social media. And again, I just want to say social media also causes a lot of anxiety amongst young people because it puts pressure for us or for young people to actually live up to certain things. There's certain expectations that are unrealistic, etc. I think there's a few other comments.
Jay Yash also has his hand up.
Okay, Yash?
So what I've also realized is being away from your parents and your family is also causes anxiety sometimes.
Mm. Because you have to isolate, and just being away is scary.
Yes.
The whole thing is scary. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Yash.
So Jay, I was wondering whether you wanted to tell us a little bit more about the social media, because I think perhaps we don't talk enough about that.
Yes.
We know, yeah. So for instance, I just read the other day about how Instagram is causing, is a contributor to the increased prevalence of depression and suicide amongst younger people. So what sort of boundaries should we actually be considering for social media in terms of the age, especially with these younger kids, right, from 13 onwards, can actually have a social media account, but is that realistic? Are they actually in control of that?
So, social media these days is playing a very big part in people's psychosocial behavior, in the emotions. So social media, as you said, Sarala, that it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and then sometimes people post things, and we are so quick to judge the other person's outside with our inside. So, for example, it could be that my friends are going on holiday to this exotic place. Okay, with COVID, we can't do that, but as an example, and then I start feeling bad because I can't do any of that. And then we start comparing, but we're not understanding that sometimes people post things that are not really their reality, or it could be that they're posting things just for show, and there are other things that are going on. But I think other aspects is that sometimes we want to live up to whatever the social media is portraying, or these so-called role models as well. So these role models, we need to actually see who these role models are. And very often they could be either on substances or weight, eating too much. Under eating because we need to be a certain weight, we need to conform. And then we start, as children, we would then develop eating problems. And that affects our diet, and that affects our mood. Sometimes even not eating affects our mood. It can affect, it can result in feeling low and so-called depressed. So you're right, Silna. I think that there needs to be some kind of monitoring system. It makes it difficult as they grow older, but we need to limit social media time even at home. So we need to have family dinner together. And at the dinner table, we need to have certain rules to say that there's no cell phones or no games. But games is the other thing I want to talk about, because I think that's a big thing. The types of games
Sorry, Jane,
brain
one
damage.
second. I'm just looking at the social media comments before you go on to games. I think they make so Anastasia is saying that social media is to be seen as a tool, and the lines become blurred. I like that. It's rather than a guide to life. But how do we communicate this? Anastasia, come talk to us. How can we actually how can we actually communicate this to our children, that it must be seen as a tool, or it must actually be seen as, like paging through a magazine, really, except that it's an electronic version rather than as a guide to life? Because I think that's that's where the kids are missing the point. What do you think, Anastasia? And then I like this keyboard gangsterism, Rashlaben. Fantastic. I like that. Have you coined that? Anastasia, are you here?
Hi, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the thing about social media is that our kids, that's the major form of communication these days. But a lot of them are kind of, that's their dependence. And parents are not getting to talk to their kids often enough to kind of give them an idea, to make them understand that social media cannot be a replacement for normal communication. And, you know, everybody is so busy. We stick a TV or a tablet in front of little kids just to keep them busy. But, you know, that is, it just, kids become dependent on that. They think that that is, you know, where they're going to get all their answers from. And yes, it is a great tool, but when it comes to communicating important issues around feelings and thinking and you know, just human relations, it doesn't replace any of that. But we have to teach our kids that. But as parents, we also need to be mindful of how our youngsters are actually depending on social media. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, can I just add as well? I really like that, Anastasia. Thank you very much for that. And I also want to just add that parents also need to be conscious of their own use of social media, because we can tell our children not to use it, or not, or to limit the time, but then we are constantly on our cell phones or whatever. So that family structure, that family time needs to happen without social media. And remember, we're also talking about the news that we see on TV. Some of us are addicted to watching the news. Um, so so we need to create that platform for communication. Anastasia, you hit the nail on the head. We need to have family time. We need to play games. We need to do things to break the ice, to start communicating with each other. I think we are going to be running out of time.
Yeah, we're going back in under a minute.
Okay.
So all right, so welcome back, everybody. Are we all back, Sadhna? Have you brought us all back together?
Yeah, I think a few people are still returning.
Okay, great. All right, so I think we had a really fantastic discussion. So much to say, so little time, but here we are. So I'm going to invite the scribes now from the breakout rooms to actually present a report back. So Varsha and Sunitha, you have been in the room with the teachers. So can you just give us some feedback? And hi, Varsha, welcome back.
Hi.
How the
Thank
exams
you.
went well. Okay, all right, let's go. Thank you.
Okay, namaste. We were in the group with teachers and we spoke about the stressors that the learners have as well as that's experienced by the teachers, which made for a very interesting conversation. And the difficulties that teachers are experiencing with the stressed learners include very extreme behaviors from the learners, which results in a very frustrated teacher because you then can't teach in the very limited time you have to implement the curriculum, especially given that we've now had to implement alternate days when it came to teaching. And then there was meeting deadlines, curriculum coverage that was a big stressor. And when it came to learners specifically, what we found that the anxiety for the learners was stemmed from their emotion of loss of their loved ones or fear of their own death. And what we came away from that room with, there was a lady called Velo Govender who actually gave a lot of pointers and food for thought. And some of the things that we as teachers and parents can address within ourselves is look at what lifestyle changes we can make within ourselves and what changes we can implement in the classroom, because COVID is here for the long term, as we can see in what we've been told. So how do we accommodate COVID, and how do we make changes in our lifestyle so that the frustrations of the children are addressed? Because children are very frustrated because of the, changes in their social life, in the changes, even teenagers, for example, that can't go out as often as they would prior to COVID. And even the little ones, they can't go out to the park and play as often as they were able to. So how can we address those frustrations that children experience, but equally as teachers, how do we address our own frustrations as a result of COVID? So we've come away with a lot of questions and a lot of food for thought from that room. Thank you.
All right, so great. Wow, that is, yeah, it's quite a complex issue right now. So, okay, Mikara and Karine, let's hear what the parents and scholars had to say.
Hello, everybody. We will be presenting on the second breakout room. So I will be presenting the first and second question, and Mikara would be doing questions 3 and 4. So the first question that we looked at was 5 things that you may be worried about. So we had discussed bullying, poor performance at school, the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically looking at the change in lifestyle, and other individuals' actions. Next was pressure of family members not understanding the condition of anxiety. And the last point was time management. The second question focused on how can you control these stressors. Here we spoke about that perhaps we could study more and work harder so that we could alleviate the stress around poor academic performance, as well as encouraging others to be safety conscious to avoid any mishaps in terms of the pandemic. I will now hand over to my co-host, Mikara.
Thanks, Karine. So the third question was what aspects are out of your control? And here we got some nice engagement from the kids in our group. Things that are out of their control, especially when they were talking about tests or studying for exams, you know, it was the difficulty of the test is something you cannot control. What type of questions come out in that test, how other people behave. So I think this is with regards to the environmental anxiety. You cannot control how other people behave. For example, if somebody's not wearing a mask, you know, you control your own actions of you wearing a mask. So that's something that you can control. And then moving on to question 4, we discussed identifying your ants in the relation to the stressor. So we spoke about some of the negative thoughts, that the automatic negative thoughts that come up. So if you're saying, are you good enough for this, or have I studied enough? You know, those are negative thoughts that are very intrusive to anxiety. And then also we had some nice engagement from the parents in the chat. We spoke a lot about social media and how this could positively or negatively affect the kids. Too much social time, too little social time. And also, I think just in conclusion, it's setting a good example for your kids. So parents, if you set a good example for your kids, it takes the pressure off of them to be less anxious. And Jay Sheila also spoke about creating family time. And I think that's super important. Just to reiterate, family time is so important, because at the dinner table, you can ask your kids, how was your day? What did you do? And it just creates a safe, comfortable spot. So if something does happen that they're a little bit uncomfortable about, they'll know they have a safe space to come and speak to the parents. Yeah, thank you. That's all from our side.
All right. Thank you, Mikara and Karine. Yeah, that was fantastic. So Jay, can you just pull it all together for us and possibly just lead us into strategies that we could possibly, broad-based strategies that one can adopt to manage anxiety?
Okay. So yeah, that was quite useful, and thank you everyone for participating. As I think just what we've seen is that the COVID pandemic is something that has affected everyone and causing stresses for educators, parents, and children in different ways. Either the isolation period, the loss, the fear of loss, and the change of lifestyle and behavior patterns on all sides. I think also the social media plays a big role since the pandemic, because most things are gone online, which makes social media a lot more easier and accessible. But that also has a negative impact. So, we need to create a safe space for young people to be able to talk and communicate their thoughts and feelings. But as parents and educators, we also need to debrief and deal with our own anxiety and stress. So I'm going to just go through some coping strategies. I'm going to screen share. Okay, so when we're looking at our automatic negative thoughts, we need to be able to take our 2 steps back. And don't forget, we can't do this alone. Sometimes we need to use writing as a tool. We need to pray. We need to speak to somebody and just have a reality check. Is what I'm thinking true? Is it realistic? Is it something that can happen? If it can happen, what can I do to perhaps deal with that? But very often we think about things that hasn't happened yet. So we need to think about what are my skills? What are my support? Who are my support people? Who can I turn to? So as young people, as adults, look at the palm of your hand and identify or name at least 5 people that we can trust, that we can go to. Identify 5 skills or 5 strengths that we have within ourselves that we can use to actually pull ourselves out of those automatic negative thoughts and changing that to positives. So think about spiritual connections. Think about what can we do physically. So we need to be able to take a break. A lot of children in our group said they stressed and anxious about deadlines or exams or writing a test. And as a result, sometimes we're studying all the time. We need to be able to take a break and move away from our environment. Maybe just take a walk, do yoga. Just find hobbies, find things that you enjoy doing. Play music, dance. Just learn to relax. Take a bath. Water is always healing. Take care of your body. Watch what you eat. Don't eat too much of junk food. Be around people that you enjoy. Remember, for the young people, you lie with sleeping dogs with fleas, you're going to end up with fleas. So let's think about who we're spending our time with. Let's find a safe space and safe people that we can share our feelings with. So there are other treatments or other strategies that we can use. Let's start getting grounded, walk bare feet for a while, get in touch with nature. Nature's always healing, breathing activities, exercise, walking. Exercise doesn't have to be a gym contract. It can just be walking, meditation, if you walk up and down your complex, um, having your vitamins on time. And let's be grateful. Sometimes, we get so caught up with all these negative things around us, including pandemic, death, exams, that we forget that there are things that we have to be grateful for. There are people that we have to be grateful for as well. So let's be thankful. Perhaps we can start journaling our gratitude. And affirmations, the power of affirmations are so important. These are just positive statements that we say to ourselves. And that is one of the most powerful ways in which we can change our automatic negative thoughts. So pray, and then change that negative talk to something positive. And just it can be something simple as, I'm grateful to be alive. I love myself. I respect myself. Even if you just focus on those two, but you can add your own. So there's, just put what you put in your mouth, not necessarily only what you eat, but also what you're watching. Don't always watch things that are violent, or that has chaos in them. Let's watch peaceful things. Natural geographic is a very good way of healing the brain, especially the prefrontal cortex. So watching nature, the nature things is important. Coloring is important as well. Adult coloring is a form of meditation. So meditation is not only sitting and not talking and blocking off your thoughts, but that's not possible. So meditation could be coloring, it could be drawing, it could be reading a book. And reading a book doesn't mean reading from cover to cover. It's just reading a page, and maybe even have book time in your family. So apart from having games and activities, let's create a family environment where we can encourage that safe space to talk. So this is just a list of resources. If we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, there are people that we can turn to for help. Besides our teachers and families, we can turn to Childline, Lifeline. SADC has many numbers and are very supportive, and can help us through this process. Thank you.
All right. So thank you, Jay. That was awesome. I just want to say thank you to both of you. Where is Desiree? Desiree, can we see you? Can we say hello to you? And just maybe you might want to give us a comment or two, just about your experience in the teacher group. Desiree, are you there? I think you're muted. Yeah.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Oh, welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so the teachers group was actually very informative on our side, because as much as we looked at the issues that have come up and the anxiety on the sides of the kids, it also came through very clearly that the teachers are also very anxious. And I think we worried about parents and we worried about the kids, and sometimes maybe the teachers are being overlooked a bit. So I'm sure most of the teachers that were in the group, and there was a social worker and myself as well, we also are parents. So we're getting it twofold as well. And I think it came through very clearly. And some of the thoughts that came out is the jurisdiction and the area that kids are from depends on a lot on their behavior in school. And some of them are coming from areas that are very violent. So when they return to school, the behavior is such that it's actually, they are disrespectful, they have no way of speaking, they are rude to others, and that aggression and anger shows out very clearly. And I think that is an added burden to the teacher, because the teacher spends more time disciplining than actually trying to get on with the lesson. And as much as there's lots of good ideas and how we can help, I think it also came through strongly that because of these days that kids only come on limited days to school, there's a lot of catch-up that needs to be done. So the teachers are also under a lot of stress as it is. And then if you're dealing with these issues, it just adds to their pressures and stresses. So with the kids as well, some of the ladies even said that they need to reinforce the good behavior when children come to school. Because when they're at home, the parents are at home, the kids are at home, and what's happening is they're both getting frustrated with each other. So when the children come to school, that aggression and anger comes out very clearly, and they are obviously giving it out onto the other kids and on the teachers. So it's, I think with COVID and stuff like that, all of us are under extreme pressure. And I think we need to be understanding to each other. We need to try and help each other out. And also, whatever feedback is coming through, and if teachers are sending messages home, the parents need to also take it under advisement. And if there's anything they could let the teachers know as well, it could help. It could be a two-way stream as well. So it was extremely informative. I think I've learned a lot from this breakaway room as well. So ladies, thank you all very much for your contribution. I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks for that feedback, Desiree. I think you're absolutely right. We are overlooking the teachers. Our focus is so much on the children that we are forgetting that the teachers are also part of the stressful situation. So, so thank you for that feedback. I think it's an eye opener for us all. All right, so time's running out. I'm just going to invite Pandita Shadharani Philip to present the vote of thanks. So please, Shadhaben, if you can please go ahead now.
Thank you. Namaste, Vanakkam, greetings to all. On behalf of the Arya Samaj Women's Forum, we'd like to express our sincere gratitude to our dearest Joshila Kuverji. And of course, we had Desiree Gopal for sharing their time and expertise as facilitators of this important event. By encouraging people to speak about anxiety, we help to destigmatize the condition. Thank you for accepting our invitation so graciously. Advertising is an event that is key to our success that we've had today. For this, we extend our gratitude to the Arya Samaj administration, Radio Hindwani, and to all of you who shared the invitation on the social media platforms. We'd like to acknowledge the contribution of the ladies of the Arya Samaj Women's Forum executive team, in particular, Varsha, Sunita, Karine, and Mikara, who have worked together to ensure the success of this event. We also extend our sincere appreciation to our techno teams, that is Sadhna and Divya Ramklas, and not forgetting our little Yash Kuverji, who also assisted us in the technical aspects. Thank you to the audience for making time to enhance your knowledge on managing anxiety. Friends, be safe, take care. But before you leave this meeting, please can you complete the poll that's on the screen right now? I thank you kindly. God bless you all.
Okay, thanks, Shadhaben. All right, so thank you, participants. It's been a bit of a marathon session, but depending on your responses, we'll decide on whether we should actually, one of the questions in the poll is whether we should actually have a follow-up session. And depending on the responses, then maybe we will actually plan a more focused follow-up session, perhaps just for teachers or just for parents. But we'll take that, we'll be guided by the poll response. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Have a brilliant weekend and take care of yourselves always. Bye-bye.